people like Gary Neville can just sod off.
Makes me feel sick that I have supported this man over the years.
Just because he's played football does not make him more patriotic. I think that proves we're living in two-tier Britain, Harry.
I am a hate crime, apparently.
People will start believing Keir Starmer's words when he starts revoking the visas of and deporting people.
Hello and welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West, the show where American grit meets British backbone. Across America, the Stars and Stripes flies from porches in schools on pickup trucks. To all but most extreme lefties, it's a unifying symbol. In Britain, apparently it's now toxic to fly the Union Jack. The very act of flying it is negative. That's certainly the view of ex-England footballer Gary Neville, after Patriots up and down the UK started to fly the flag once again on lampposts and front doors. Let's hear what he had to say.
I just kept thinking as I was driving home last night that we're all being turned on each other, and the division that's being created is absolutely disgusting. Mainly created by angry, middle-aged white men who know exactly what they're doing. Funnily enough, on one of my development sites last week, there was a Union Jack flag put up, and I took it down instantly. But I've been building in this city for 15, 20 years, and there's no one put a Union Jack flag up in the last 15 to 20 years, so why do you need to put one up now? Because quite clearly it's sending a message to everybody that there is something you don't like. The Union Jack flag being used in a negative fashion is not right.
In the aftermath of last week's Manchester terror attack, according to the multimillionaire TV pundit Gary there, the problem isn't jihadists who are literally called jihad, but it's the angry middle-aged white men sowing division in society. And shockingly, even government ministers have publicly agreed with him. Tonight, when did loving your country become a hate crime? Since when did pride turn to prejudice? And if we can't stand in front of our flag, then what is left to unite us at all? And while Britain bickers, how united is America really, as the White House goes on the attack against what they're calling a rise in domestic terrorism? Joining me in the studio for tonight's show, editor of the National Pulse, Raheem Kassam. Raheem Kassam, you're a Brit who's been in America for near on a decade now. Well, give us your reflection on the difference, just on that flag. It's just such a perfect example of how separate these two countries are going, isn't it?
Yeah, Harry, thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Effectively, they're talking about you.
Yeah.
Middle-class white men.
Wow, okay, all right.
I feel like I should be interviewing you at this point.
I am a hate crime, apparently.
You know what's funny is when I first started coming to America, one of the things that really struck me is you used to land into Dulles International Airport here in Washington, D.C. You walk out of the entrance and immediately it's a sea of American flags, designed intentionally to be that way. All around downtown Washington, D.C., not far from where we are right now. I would navigate the city because there was a big Burberry store with a big British flag on it. There was a big American flag hanging on Connecticut Avenue. And they don't see it as a political symbol necessarily. A little bit against us, maybe, right?
Yeah, but they'll get over it eventually. 250 years, yeah.
But the amount of pride that they take with their flag, the broader emblems of America, is something not only have we now lost in the United Kingdom, but actually we're now demonising. As a Manchester United fan...
Yes, well, that was, I was about to say. What do you make of Gary Neville there? The new political pundit of the left. I mean, it's a pretty moronic thing to say. Right?
It makes me feel sick that I have supported this man over the years when he says such stupid and asinine and offensive things. But I can't help but think that despite the agreement from some Labour politicians, he is finding his way into becoming the new Gary Lineker.
Well, we saw how that ended with Gary Lineker, who was forced out of the BBC after an anti-Semitism crisis. Raheem, stay there. We're joined by friend of the show, Adam Brooks, all the way from Essex in the United Kingdom. Adam, commentator, campaigner extraordinaire. Another hate crime to add to the list, right? By the time we get back to the United Kingdom, you're all going to be banged up for flying the flag next, right?
I'll be shocked if I'm not banged up under this government. But look, it's just another Labour activist. And a lot of people don't know that, Gary Neville is a Labour activist. He helped put this government in. Money has gone to his head. He's forgotten where he's come from. And to say, I cannot believe he's admitted that. He's gone to one of his building sites, one of his big development sites, and he's taken the Union flag down. The builders and the workers there must think he's a right idiot. They really must do. I know a few ex-Premier League footballers that think he's an idiot as well. How have we got here, Harry? I really don't know. You know, how can our flag be insulting to some? How can our flag, us putting it out there, us signalling our patriotism, how can that be divisive? At the end of the day, what I tell you is divisive, is dumping tens of thousands of unverified, unchecked foreign men into areas like Epping, where I campaign, and seeing 14-year-old girls sexually assaulted and women sexually assaulted as well. That's divisive. And that is what we are pushing back for. Remember, a lot of these campaigns came from Epping. We started this sort of pushback, and thank God that the rest of the country is pushing back now as well. We're not racist. We're not far right. We are just sticking up for our communities. And people like Gary Neville saying things like this, you know, a champagne socialist, far removed from everyday people, Harry.
Do you think there's a bit of snobbery in this? The Raise the Flag movement has gone up across working class areas, across majority, mostly in England. It's the first time we've seen a sort of outpouring of open and overt patriotism organically across the country, but it is mostly in working class areas. Do you think people like millionaires like Gary Neville, is it snobbery? Am I being too unfair on him?
It is. Money, as I said, money's gone to his head. He's forgotten where he's come from. He's not just a millionaire, Harry. Let's be truthful now. He's worth tens of millions of pounds. And what I've said earlier in the week when this broke is that if and when society breaks down because of governments like we've got now, and we're filled with illegal immigrants in our towns, and there's trouble, there's sexual assaults, people like Gary Neville can just sod off. They can go to another country, they can move their family easily with what they've got. They do not face the problems that people like us face in our towns, Harry. And that is where he's so far removed. Some of the videos that I've been in regarding Gary over the last day or two have had millions of views. And for me, that signals that people are sharing it on WhatsApp. They've had enough. White Van Man feels real let down by the comments that Gary Neville said. Just because he's played football does not make him more patriotic than someone that's got a white van and a Union flag or a St George's cross on their van.
Adam, stay there. Raheem Kassam, you're nodding along. You're nodding along there.
I think sod off is the best way of putting it, and here's why. Because people like Gary Neville are sowing open division.
Oh, there we go.
Off. Here's what occurs to me. Adam asked the question, how can it be divisive? How can the flag be divisive? I'll tell you how. Because symbols of unity are necessarily divisive by those trying to divide us. Multiculturalism isn't the philosophy of one nation and one people. Multiculturalism is a philosophy of division and apartness and otherness and ghettoization. And that's how that symbol can end up there.
Adam, the other flag we see a lot in the United Kingdom, day in, day out, is the Palestinian flag. It does seem to me that there's a section of society that are more offended by the Union Jack than seeing the flag directly associated with the horrors of October 7th and what's going on in the Middle East. Seas of them across London. Can I believe, is it true, I am baffled, that there is actually going to be a protest tomorrow in London, a pro-Gaza, anti-Israel protest on October the 7th, 2 years after the massacre, and the police are going to allow that to go ahead?
I believe so. From what I've seen on social media, I've also seen many university campuses having these so-called, they're almost like celebrations on this day as well. Now, over the last 3 or 4 days, we have seen some sick and deranged behaviour from these lefties and these pro-Palestinian marches, some awful anti-Semitism, and I would say that that's more dividing society than middle-aged white men like myself that Gary seems to have a problem with. Let's also remember, it isn't white middle-aged men in this country that are killing people in cold blood outside synagogues or committing terrorist atrocities. I think his words were so divisive, and I believe he may be regretting what he said. Someone told me he's deleted the video. I can't verify that, but I would think he's regretting his words now, because he's made himself look like a right plonker, and he has alienated so many people. Look, we're still going to watch Sky Sports, we're still going to watch the football, but it doesn't mean that we like listening to this. I'm going to call him an idiot because he has acted like a complete idiot, Harry.
Or you could just turn over to our friends at TalkSport. Much easier. You don't have to listen to Gary Lineker or indeed Gary Neville. Adam, one more question while I've got you here tonight, and thank you again for joining us. There does seem to be some action coming out, certainly talk coming out of the government. They seem to have woken up slightly. The Home Secretary seems to have woken up slightly to the fact these cumulative effects of these protests, especially the pro-Gaza ones. Weekend in, weekend out, going down to the same places, marching down the same spots. Are you worried that sort of clamp down on protests on the left is going to bring some of the stuff that you are doing to raise awareness of Epping and the hotels? Are you worried that you're going to be sort of thrown out and swept up in that?
100%. I think they was waiting for something like this to enact stricter protest laws on people like myself and those outside the Bell Hotel. We are an inconvenience, even though we are sticking up for our communities, young girls being sexually assaulted. You cannot make us wrong. Yet we've had hate marches in London, and some of this anti-Semitism is disgusting. So where is the condemnation of the 500 arrests from Sadiq Khan and Mahmoud? Where is that? And Keir Starmer. Yet on the United Kingdom rally, there was 26 arrests. 99.9% of people behaved. It was a carnival atmosphere, and yet he stood there, our Prime Minister, giving a big statement. Where are the statements about what we see the other night? On Thursday, the day of the synagogue events, there was people in train stations, acting and being terrible, really, and there's been no condemnation from the leaders of our country. So I think that proves we're living in two-tier Britain, Harry.
But final question, is the six scenes of hatred, the police say they're powerless to stop it, ministers say they're powerless to stop it because the right to protest, is that worth the price to pay for you to be able to protest? And I'm not accusing you in any way of using the similar tactics or awful scenes, but your right to protest, needs to be protected as much as anyone else's.
100%. Look, it's a democratic right to protest. But we cannot complain if we preach hate. We don't preach hate in Epping. We've got the Pink Ladies. I'm going on a protest tomorrow in Tower Hamlets because of their behaviour with the Pink Ladies. But there's a line between celebrating terrorism and pushing back against sexual assaults in your town. We must protect the democratic right to protest. But this government, I believe, are going to twist this and use it on people like me and the people of Epping, rather than the left that they seem to protect at every possible time.
Adam Brooks, thank you for joining us on Harry Kell Saves the West. See you again soon, and all power to your elbow. Raheem Kassam, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, one of your favourite people, I'm sure, has described the idea of protesting against Israel tomorrow on October the 7th as un-British. That's a sort of trying to put the horse back in the stable after, I'm mangling my metaphor here, but that horse has bolted, right? These protests are already pretty offensive, right?
I think the protesters would actually like to be called un-British. These are people who don't necessarily identify as British in the way that we know it anyway. So that kind of rhetoric does nothing. People will start believing Keir Starmer's words when he starts revoking the visas of and deporting people who aren't in line with his idea of what is tolerable in that sense. That's what President Trump is doing with the people who are in America on those lines. And there is no greater transatlantic show as this one. That's the sort of thing that we need to be talking about. Where are the best practices from the US that the British government needs to be implementing now?
I mean, we've talked about this at length. The fact is that Keir Starmer and Donald Trump 2.0 have been in power not a dissimilar amount of time. One of them is facing record migration across the Channel, illegal migration across the Channel this year. One of them has got capture and release down to zero. Got control over the border, without, however, the restraints of the legal restraints that Britain has boxed itself in with various treaties and what. There's not a huge amount that Keir Starmer can do, really, is there?
Well, what's going to happen if you break the treaties?
Well, there we go.
No, honestly, we always talk about this, we can't because of ECHR and whatever. Well, let's do it and see what they want to do in response. Because I bet you they're a paper tiger, and I bet you nothing will actually happen.